We are doing our modern halacha laws of Shabbat. And, this year, because of the safety of all the hostages and the whole catastrophe happened on Simchat Torah, which was a Shabbat, we're trying to learn the Shabbat, so Hashem brings out our hostages. Unfortunately, it was heartbreaking to see 6 of them were found dead in the tunnel.
That were killed recently.
And I was thinking, what should I give the shir on? So I realized the question that I was asked the most was that Baruch Hashem, it's so wonderful that people have guests over on Shabbat, especially less observant, to be makarev them. One of the greatest people in all time in Jewish outreach said that a good cholent and a good gondi and a good Shabbat challah brought more Jews back to Judaism than even the most fantastic speech. Because a lot of times, so one of the most common questions I was asked, since the Gedolim, the posek of our generation, Rav Zilberstein, Rav Chaim Kanievsky's brother, said we should try to learn the laws of Shabbat. I realized that the question I was asked the most, even this year, 3-4 people asked me this. I would say probably a couple of dozen of times in my 22 rabbinical year career is, a lot of times Shabbat guest brings flowers. Are you allowed to put them in the vase on Shabbat? So we're going to start right away. The Ramah in 136 Hilchot Shabbat says, you're allowed to put like branches of trees into the vase on Shabbat. But, there's a big but here. He says as long as the flowers are open. But if the flowers are in a closed situation, and on Shabbat, by you putting them in the water, they're going to kind of like open up.
There's such an immediacy from the point you put it in that even...
Yeah, like have you seen flowers? I'm very into flowers. I love flowers. Good idea for Shalom Bayit, to buy it for your mother and wife. All the women that put such hard care. All the blessing of the house is b'zchut the wife and our mothers and wives that work so wonderfully. So, but the issue over there is the Ramah, based on the Maharil, says that if on Shabbat the flowers close like a closed rose, and then throughout Shabbat, by you putting in the water, kind of opens. It kind of looks like you're planting,
So over Shabbat, it could actually open.
Yeah. So if it's totally open, it's fine to put it in. Or if it's like a daisy, but if it's a type of plant.
So 1 second. So specifically over the course of Shabbat, it could open up like that?
Yeah, you're not allowed to put it in. You could put it in a vase, but without water.
Even a rose is a problem.
Yeah, anything that would... anything that's closed, and then it becomes like open and it becomes mature. It comes to its full beauty, right?
How do you know the cause of the water? Maybe it's just time elapsed.
Yeah, that's what they hold. I don't know biologically, but that's what the poskim say. But there's a very interesting Maharam Chaviv, one of the great Sephardic Achronim. He has a beautiful sefer. If you ever learn Masechet Sukkah, he's beautiful. I saw it a few times. He has a bomb question on this Ramah. He argues on him. He says there's a Mishnah in Sukkah, Mem Bet Amud Aleph 42a in the Talmud Bavli. He says, we see in the Mishnah, it says what? A woman is allowed to take... Okay, do you know there used to be a time, Rabotai, that people were allowed to shake their lulav and etrog on Shabbat. They would actually carry it. They would actually do it in the Bet HaMikdash. Because the old city of Jerusalem had an Eruv. It was a walled city. Yeah, so... Exactly. So it's scientific. Thank you. It's scientifically proven by you putting in the water, it causes it to open up the flow.
Tuger pressure.
Yeah, it's called. So if anybody wanted to know, by you putting closed roses in the flower, you are actually causing it over Shabbat to open up, to sprout, kind of, because it's called Tuger pressure. Thank you, Ruben. What are we gonna do without you? So it says.
How did you find it?
The thing is.
Of course.
So anyways, the issue here is that there's a Mishnah about this that's a little bit problematic, the Maharam Chaviv says. That's a very interesting shir. I like this shir. it says that the Mishnah over there in Sukkah says that a woman is allowed to put the lulav back inside the water. Why? From her son and her husband. So a woman, when the husband and son come back from shul or the Bet Hamikdash, she's allowed to take their lulav and hadassim, that's all, and aravos, that's all in one package, and put it back into the vase. Why? Even on Shabbat, in order that the it shouldn't become dwindled and twilt out, right? We don't want it. We want
if it's open, not from.
Yeah. So no, but listen, this is we're not talking about flowers here. We're talking about lulav, and obviously not the etrog, but the other three species that we shake on together. And it says, Rabbi Yehuda says. So here, just listen very sharply though. The Mishnah there says you're allowed to return it back into water. Rabbi Yehuda says, yes, he agrees on Shabbat you're allowed to return it back into water. On Yom Tov you're even allowed to add water. And on Chol Hamoed you're allowed to even change the water. And Rashi explains, why do they put it in water? Because we don't want it to, it's not beautiful, right? Sukkot, we want all our mitzvot to be beautiful. Should your mitzvot look ugly? Is it nice if your aravot become black? Maybe your coffee should be black, but your aravot shouldn't be black. So therefore, the Chachamim, they allow you. But they don't allow you to change the water or add it. On Yom Tov, you're not allowed to, Shabbat, you're not allowed to add water. On Yom Tov, you're allowed to water. On Chol Hamoed, on Yom Tov, we're not allowed to change out the water because Yom Tov, you should be more relaxed and learn more. Especially, you have to understand, in the old time, they were badbachte people. They didn't have running water. So to go fetch water from the well on Yom Tov and then change out the vase was too much of a schlep. But anyways, this is the question the Maharam Chaviv asks. He says, Asur, and I read for you verbatim his question, Mikan sha'asur latet anfei lanot lechatchila. It says, the Mishnah only says, you're allowed to return. A woman is allowed to take the lulav and etrog from her husband, right? And put it back in the vase. But it doesn't say lechatchila you're allowed to put it
in the first place.
In the first place.
What's the
So,
first place?
First place is, it was up, which means, if something is already here
and you take it out and put it back in
before Shabbat, so okay, the Mishnah says you're allowed to return it. But the Maharam Chaviv says, why is the Ramah so lenient that he allows you to put something from a new, to begin with, inside the vase?
If it was before Shabbat, you can put it back in.
Yeah. Maybe, yeah, exactly. Only if it was before Shabbat, you're allowed to put it back in. But a lot of times the question I'm asking you is the guest brings it for you. You should know. The more sophisticated guests that are more yeshivish are smart. They bring the flowers before Shabbat. If they want to give it as a gift, so the guy puts it in the vase. There's no... we don't have to deal with this problem. But a lot of times, your guests are Baal Teshuvah. They're not so frum. You're trying to be makar of them, like a good neighbor, right? So the Maharam Chaviv says that perhaps the Ramah is being too lenient. The Chachamim from the Mishnah we see only allow you to return it, but not to put in a new thing to begin with. So maybe you're not allowed to. By the way, Rabbi Kiva Eger, which is the Gedolei Achronim, also has the same problem. He says, he doesn't refer to the Maharam Chaviv, but he says, how does the Ramah know this? Perhaps it's only mutar to return it back to where it came from before Shabbat, but not to put it a new thing to begin with on Shabbat. He doesn't mention the Maharam Chaviv. So it's a very interesting Acharonim. Two of the greatest Ashkenazi Achronim actually take this question to heart. The Tosfot Shabbat and the Chaya Adam, based on this question and this Mishnah, before the Mishnah Brura and the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the most important Kitzur Shulchan Aruch summary of all of Ashkenazi Halacha, like in the time of the Gra, he was a Talmud of the Gra, the Chaya Adam. Their Ben Ishchai that all the Ashkenazim used to learn and all the rabbis used to teach one was the Chaya Adam. It's actually very beautiful. It's written very clear and beautiful, and it's also like the Ben Ishchai brings a lot of. It's very friendly for Balabatim because it's written very accessible. It's clear. It's easy to understand. It's like sometimes you learn Mishnah. I don't know if you guys learn Mishnah Brura or Shulchan Aruch. Sometimes it's very confusing. So many different shivot, but so I kid you not.
Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, you can also.
Yeah, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch is, but in my experience, has been the clearest sefer that I've seen. Halachically speaking, that's like a summary of the Shulchan Aruch is the Chai Adam for
Really?
Ashkenazim.
Oh, for Ashkenazim.
Yeah, I mean
Even
the Benish.
more than the Kitzur. No.
Yeah, I'm seeing. I honestly learned more Yalkut Yosef and Ben Ish Chai, but my experience is that I really, really like his clarity and he's very. He brings a lot of good reasons for his things. So, anyways, the Chai Adam says, yeah, that is actually a good question. So, therefore, the Chai Adam says, halachically, you're only allowed, if he actually says like this, and I read for you verbatim, Mutar la'amid b'Shabbat anfei lanot she'ochlu mi'etmol. He says you're only allowed to return back. He says if, for example, let's say you had a beautiful rose, right, that was already open in the vase. You take it out of the vase that had water in it before Shabbat and you want to smell it. Are you allowed to put it back? Yes. But
before Shabbat?
So according to the Chai Adam, he has two criteria. First of all, there has to be water in the vase before Shabbat, and before Shabbat the flower is totally opened.
So there's no Kiddush here.
But he holds that he argues on the Ramah. He says if somebody brings you a guest, your guest brings you a Friday night new flowers, he says you're not allowed to put it in. Exactly like this diuk of the Maharam Chabib. Because how do you know? Maybe Chazal only allowed you to put it back, like the case of the lulav. We're going to soon see there's a Chuvas HaRashba that, but that's how not only the Chai Adam Paskins, but one of the also great, very important Achronim of the Ashkenazim, Tosefet HaShabbat answers. Aval im lo amdu me'etmol lo itan lechatchila. He says, if these flowers were not in the water, this is perhaps why a lot of Ashkenazim, I know they bring the flowers before Shabbat, right? Because they want you to put it in the vase before. Therefore, we don't have any problems. According to all the poskim, you're in the clear. But according to these poskim, the Tosfos Shabbos, right? And the Chai Adam, you wouldn't allow to even, they're more machmer than the Ramah. They hold that you're, even if the flowers are open, and for sure, according to them, you're not allowed to change the water or add water. Only on Chol Hamoed you're allowed to change. So Rav Ovadia has a problem with this Chai Adam. He says that this is actually, they want to even suggest this is a pshat in the Ramah. They say even the Ramah agrees to us. The Ramah is only saying that you're allowed to return, but not to, if somebody brings you new flowers Friday night that were never in your vase to put it in. Rav Ovadia says, first of all, that's not mashma like the Ramah like that. That it's clear the Ramah, the source for the Ramah is the Maharil, and if you've seen the Maharil inside, he's clearly saying you're allowed to put it, and as long as the flower is not closed but is totally, right, open. So, the Pri Megadim, which is another one of the crown masters of the Shulchan Aruch of the, right, he has the Pirush on the Taz and the Magen Avraham, he actually says yes, that he argues on the Chai Adam and the thing, and he says no. From the Ramah, it's very clear. Sha'af shelah hayu b'mayim mutar litam lechatchila Shabbat. He says, don't change the words of the Ramah to mean what they don't. Even if it's a new flowers that a person brought you Friday night, and this is considering there's a eruv, obviously. As long as the flowers are open, you're allowed to put it in a new water, right? But according to the Pri Megadim, there is one catch here that you're allowed to put it lechatchila, but he says the only thing is you have to have the water in the vase before Shabbat. You understand? And the Shulchan Aruch HaRav, the Chabad, the person that started Chabad, the Balatanya Shulchan Aruch HaRav also holds like this. As does the Iglei Tal. So, because they hold, so let me explain it. They hold, you have to understand, it's only like maybe, how many years? 70, 80 years we have running water. It used to be a very big schlep to go and to the well and put the water in the kli, right? So they hold that...
somebody might go draw the water. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. They hold as long... So again, just to clarify, they hold that they're more lenient than the Shita of the Chai Adam, you understand? the Shulchan Aruch HaRav and the Pri Megadim hold, that's absolutely fine. Even if these flowers did not exist in this vase before Shabbat, right? You're allowed to put them brand new flowers in on Shabbat. But there's a criteria. There has to be water in the vase from before Shabbat, because we don't want you to put a headache and go fetch the water on Shabbat. That's but they're more lenient than the Chai Adam. Chai Adam says not only does the water need to be in the vase before Shabbat, the flowers need to be in the vase before Shabbat, and you're not allowed to return the flowers, right? You're not, okay. But there's a hallmark to Shuvas HaRashba that says, they asked the Rashba, in the olden days they didn't have fridges. So, and Baruch Hashem, we Sephardim and Middle Easterns, we love eating a lot of vegetables and herbs with our food, right? Tareh, mint, and so he says, would it be mutter on Shabbat to take water and sprinkle it on your herbs and vegetables so they don't dry up? So some say no, maybe it's also because you're only allowed to return, like we said, like the question,
like similar to the flowers.
Similar to the flowers, only if they were in the vase before, but these were not in water before. Rashba says no way. He brings a fascinating Yerushalmi, by the way. Rashba says you're for sure allowed to sprinkle your herbs and vegetables on Shabbat in order that they shouldn't shrivel and dry up and lose their.
You're eating them? Why?
No, because he says the case of lulav is worse, because he says technically, after you shake the lulav on Shabbat, this is before the Chachamim made the gzera that you're going to carry on Shabbat. You finished the mitzvah, so why should you should put it down in shul? Why should you bring it back home, right? And I'll read for you the Rashba verbatim. He says, Min hadin hayasha lo latir latafilu b'yom tov. It would be better that right once you finish shaking the lulav even on Yom Tov, you should put it down on the table and not deal with it anymore, because you did the mitzvah. So why you? So it says this mefurish in the Yerushalmi. You should know the Talmud Yerushalmi holds after you shook the lulav up, down, all around, and you put it on the table, you shouldn't touch it anymore. That's how the Yerushalmi holds, because the mitzvah was done.
You're saying
similar to like shofar. We're gonna Rosh Hashanah in less than a month. Halachically, you're not allowed to practice how to blow a shofar on Shabbat. On Yom Tov, once you finish blowing, you put it away. It's not like a game, because really you're not allowed to make musical noise. So the Yerushalmi holds the same thing by lulav. So he says, the Bavli argues. The Bavli says no. That's disrespectful for the sukkah, to the lulav. If right the second you finish shaking it, you put it down, you don't put it back in water, it's going to rot, shrivel up, and it's going to lose its beauty. So it's mutter to put it back. And even on Yom Tov to add more water, right? To make sure that it stays intact and beautiful and green and it's pristine. But he says, something that you want to eat, Shabbat is always a mitzvah to have pleasure, right? Onek Shabbat. Or Rav Ovadia, so he says, Rav Ovadia says, we see from this Rashba something very important. And that is that lulav is a worst case. You understand? The question of the Maharam Chaviv goes away. You understand, guys? Are you with me? This is a little bit lamdish ashir. Maharam Chaviv, lulav is a worst case, because lulav, once you do the mitzvah, you're not benefiting from it. You understand? But lulav especially
is worse versus what?
Versus roses that you smell, or hadas leaves. It's a mitzvah always also to say 100 brachot on Shabbat. It's brought down in the Shulchan Aruch. Even on Yom Kippur, you should have all these different besamim, herbs and good smelling flowers to get to the 100 brachot. So therefore, Rav Ovadia says, based on the Rashba, not only is it mutter to put new flowers in the vase, but you're even allowed to add water, right? Not machmer like the Pri Megadim and the Balatanya, Shulchan Aruch HaRav, that they say the water needs to be in the vase before Shabbat. You understand? And he says, by the way, the Shulchan Aruch in Shin Chaf Aleph, Orach Chaim, chapter 121, Halacha 11, he paskins like the Rashba, Rabotai. That's why he says it's always mutter if your herbs or vegetables on Shabbat or fruits are drying up, you're allowed to sprinkle them with water. It's a different category than lulav.
But the flour in the vase only if the flour smells.
Exactly.
That's,
So as flour smells, yeah, exactly. We're gonna see. It's complicated, but there are many poskim that agree to this idea of the Rashba and the Rav Ovadia and the Poulat HaSadiq. So he says that, like I said before, it would be mutter based on this Rashba to, for sure, if it has a smell, the flour, and it's a mitzvah to get to your 100, because it's a big challenge on Shabbat to get to the 100 brachot, because your Shemana Esrei you're losing, it's much shorter, the 3 Shacharit Mincha Arvit that we daven on Shabbat. So, and he says nowadays there's no hassle in filling up your vase. So if somebody brought you good smelling flowers on Shabbat, based on the Rashba, that you're going to also use the flowers to smell, right? Because smelling is also a subcategory of eating. You're using it. You're having benefit from it. You're allowed to put new water in it, and you're allowed to. He says, and it says you should know. The Mishnah Berurah is machmer like the Chaya Adam, not like the Chaya Adam. I probably like the Prima Gadim and the Griz, and the Shulchan HaRav. But he says, Rav Ovadia says they didn't see the words of the Rashba. If they would have seen the words of the Rashba, from the Rashba, it's clear you don't have to be so machmer.
why did they
Then now there's a shita that's even more mekel. You know what he says? One of the great Sephardic postim is the Markish, the Markash, the Marikash. The Marikash in the Erech Lechem, you know what he says? He says the minhag of, he was in Tunisia. He says the minhag of our country was, he says, I don't understand, where did they get this halacha that even if the flower is closed, it opens on Shabbat is a problem? Because of the tungun effect, right? That through the pressure of the water, it causes the flowers to sprout. He says, he argues, he says, this is extreme chumrah. This is not an Isur D'Oraita, and it's not brought down in the Gemara. He says, I hear, have you ever seen where you put, the Persians do it for Nowruz, where they put like barley and
chia seed
or different seeds, barley or wheat, and then it starts sprouting. So that the Erech Lechem, the Marikash says, okay, that maybe is similar to Zoreya, because even though it's not planting in dirt, it starts like becoming a new phenomenon, new greenery. Like, you understand? You put like a chia seed or a bean or thing, even though you're not planting in the ground, you're planting in a cup, like a new. It's one of the most classic science projects you do as a third or fourth grader, right? Like a new flower green.
Try to grow something from this, yeah.
Yeah, so that, okay, he hears is a problem. First of all, that's not going to happen over Shabbat. First of all, the Marikash says, I agree. On Shabbat, it's not appropriate to start planting like those things that people do for Persians do for Nowruz, or people do as a science project to do it on Shabbat, because it's going to cause it. But he says if the flower is already totally matured, only it's closed and it opens, he holds he says, I don't see any rabbinic or any chumrah, it's for sure mutter, and the minhag of our countries is okay to do it. It's brought down, by the way, in the Bet Yosef. Okay, so this is the most lenient shita, you understand? According to the Marikash, anytime you get flowers on Shabbat, they're open, they're closed, put them in the flour, put them in the pot, put water, you're 100% okay. The problem is, one of the greatest Sephardi poskim that wrote the first Kaf HaChaim, the Rav Chaim Filaji, he argues. He says that the Maharim Chaviv, remember the Maharim Chaviv that we brought in the beginning, says it's not clear from the Mishnah that's allowed, and you're not allowed to return them, right? So he says for sure if it opens up, and he argues. So it's true. Rav Ovadia says, first of all, with all due respect to Rav Chaim Filaji, he didn't see the Rashba, right? The Rashba seems to.
Didn't see the Rashba?
Sometimes, listen, they're not a computer. They're not chat GPT. Sometimes, you have to understand. The rabbis,
right?
the rabbis in those times were also living. Remember, we were saying the Messiah Yeshayim, they were dealing with life and death problems. Maybe a woman came, her husband had just died. They had a guna problem. Only God is perfect. So, bottom line is, Rav Ovadia, he concludes this shir by saying this. He says that since we have the Rashba, for sure one absolutely does not need to be more machmer than the what? Maharil and the Ramah. Which means, if it smells good, and for sure if it smells good, the flowers, right? Because they're hadassim, like myrtle leaves that are fragrant, they have a fragrancy. You're allowed to put them you're allowed to add water lachatchila to the vase and put them in. But he holds, Rav Ovadia says, that since the Ramah was machmir by, I think Rav Ovadia's calculation is the Ma'aram Chaviv and the Rav Chaim Villaji weren't so happy. So Rav Ovadia is not comfortable with putting flowers that were closed and they're going to have the tongue gun effect, right? To open on Shabbat, he's not comfortable with that. And but as long as the flowers have been totally opened up to their full maturity, you're allowed to. So to review the shir, because we brought a lot of shitos down. Atzeh besamim, smelling herbs like myrtle leaves, hadassim, and rosemary. There's a lot of great different things. Those you can put in water in a brand new vase, even though they were not in the vase before Shabbat. You're allowed to put them on Shabbat and add water.
What are you not allowed to do?
And put in the thing. And for sure you're allowed to add water. But those what you're not allowed to do is, like the Ramah, if they're closed, if it's a type of rose or species of flower similar to a rose that's bundled up now, by you putting it in the tongue gun effect is going to take effect on through Shabbat. It's going to open up. It's not the right thing to do. Even though you have the Mari Kash, by the way, you know why it's so important to learn Rav Ovadia's Svarim? Because let's say your parents did it, or your brother, sister did it. Should you make a fight over it? No! Rav Ovadia is only saying L'chatchila because the Mari Kash is one of the great Sephardi poskim, and the Chida even quotes him. I mean, Lamaisa, this Chumrah is not brought down in Shas. It's a Chumrah from one of the Rishonim that says, it's hard to know where he gets it from. Fine, he's like, Baruch Hashem, maybe had Ruach HaKodesh, the tongue gun effect, but it's Yisur de Rabbana. It's not, what I'm saying? You're not. So, Rav Ovadia would want to say that even if the vase has water before Shabbat, if the flowers are closed, you shouldn't put it in. And unfortunately, it's going to be a shame because these flowers may die by the end of Shabbos, but, too bad. For sure, I would say you're allowed to tell a goy to put it in, by the way. Because one of the great Sephardi poskim, because the Chida brings a very important raya. Even in something that the Shulchan Aruch asers, as long as one of the Rishonim, like the Rabbeinu Tam says, is okay, the Shulchan Aruch was only machmer on klal. You understand? That's why caterings are allowed to reheat soup on Shabbat for a simcha, according to the Chida. Because that chumrah that we're not allowed to reheat liquids is only for a Jew. But for Amira La'akum, understand? We don't need to be machmer for that. Because anyways, Rov Rishon, you understand? So anyways, it's good I brought that this point. That's a very big yisod. So that he holds is you're not allowed to. V'gam im hisiram. And he says even a bigger chumrah. He says this type of roses that were closed on Shabbat, let's say you became infatuated, they were so romantic and vibrant, the roses, that you took out the rose on Shabbat, Rav Ovadia says you're not allowed to put it back in. Because now by you putting back in, the tongue gun effect is going to take effect and it's going to sprout. You shouldn't put it back in. But as long as they're open, again, it goes back to the same thing as hadassim and myrtles. You're allowed to add water to the vase and put them in, even though the person brought them Friday night. And Rav Ovadia says, if you want to be super machmir and go even be machmir like the Maharam Chaviv, that even if the the flowers are open, or like the Chai Adam, those poskim that hold the Balatanya, the Shulchan HaRav that hold, even if the things are open, then you should be blessed. But I don't know if that's really the minhag of the world. But obviously, if a person wants to be, like we said, you don't want to get into any trouble whatsoever. You cover all your bases by bringing the gift before Shabbat. Especially if there's no Eruv, then that gets into a whole other problem. Okay, thank you for listening.
What's the HaRav